Hey everybody, it's Jim here, and today is going to be an episode of the Audiomo podcast, but it is going to be a little bit different than normal. I just sat down and had a conversation with Rafa. The part of the conversation that's going to be in this video is going to be about practice, about how to practice, what to practice, given your own kind of skill level and what you want to achieve, and how to identify ways to improve efficiently. Then on Rafa's channel, I'm going to leave a link to that down below. We did go into some of the gear stuff, which is a lot of fun, different brands, why he decided to go away from some of the off brands and go towards some of the bigger brands. I found it very interesting, as well as some gigging conversation towards the end of it. But I had a lot of fun with this, and going forward, I think it'd be a good way to kind of help other people and go with their YouTube channels as well.
But like you were saying just before we started the call, and maybe it's a good topic to start on, because I have noticed I've taken time to record videos, and then I end up not recording any videos because it will be just like talking about something, and like I could just use the time to really practice and to learn something and to get better. That's what I'm trying to achieve here. Yesterday, I told my wife, don't enter this mini room that I have. I'm gonna record a video. It's like, okay. And I didn't. I was just playing arpeggios. Arpeggios? Burnf? I think it's his name. He's like metal dude, but he has really good exercises, play-along exercises. Okay, so that's how you say it. So I was just doing that, and then I went on to GarageBand, put a drum loop, and then started at 90 and slightly increased it till 150, which I couldn't do properly, so I then turned it back to 140. And I spent the hour like that instead of doing anything video-wise. That's what I did. I practiced, and it's better because videos are always a bit dependent on the reaction of the people to have some sort of joy from it, in a sense. Because there's always cases that you make a video that you really think, oh, this is really good. People will enjoy it, and then no one watches it. But if you practice, you've got it now. It's an added skill to the skill set.
It's funny that you say that. Like last night, perfect example, because I uploaded every day for a year, and I kind of I missed one day, and that was kind of the end of it. It was just like, well, I missed one day, now I can miss a few days here and there. Who cares at this point? But last night, I knew I was going to come on and do this with you in the morning, and I was like, you know what? I'm really going to sit and I'm really going to practice. And I've been doing that recently. On days where I'm not uploading the next day, I'm actually sitting up and working on things that I've been neglecting, like as far as like the boring stuff, because it's so important to do things like that. It's one thing to sit and learn a new song. It's another thing to actually analyze your technique. And like last night, the thing I was working on was really economy picking, which is something that I'm not a lead guitarist, so I have so much room for growth on it. And I just sat and I kept doing it, and it was hurting. And then I was just stretching, and then I just kept going, and it was amazing. And at the end of it, I was lying in the bed, and my wife couldn't sleep. I could feel her moving around, so I was just like kind of in thought. And all I could think to myself was like, this feels good. Like I felt really positive about it. Like sometimes when I shoot YouTube videos, I can play like decently. Like most people don't know the difference. You know what I mean? Because people in general, when they hear a product, they don't want to hear somebody who's like out of this world good for the product demonstration. Otherwise it gets turned off, because then it's not realistic to a lot of players. So people are fine with like a lot of the basic stuff I play. That doesn't push me to keep learning and improving certain things. And I don't get anything as a guitar player skill-wise back from that. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a tough balancing act of doing both.
It's a bit like going to the gym, isn't it? When you come back, you always feel like, oh, it was something nice to do, even though sometimes it's a bit hard to start going, although I haven't been going to the gym for a few months now. But that's not what we're discussing here. What we're discussing here is guitar practice. And it is absolutely true, because we are in plateaus, right? So we progress, and then we stop, and then we progress a little more. And sometimes, even if I've noticed, because this was something that I had done before, I was struggling a little bit to do like the spider exercise of moving a finger at a time on the frets without lifting them all. I was like, oh, I had more dexterity like a year ago when I was doing this more regularly because my guitar teacher at the time was telling me to do it, and now I don't have a guitar teacher because I'm a musician, and therefore I need to prepare for gigs and to play. Um, so it's an interesting skill set to have, and I think even if it's not used in a performance, it always adds to our self um, improvement.
I think arpeggio is a really good example of that. I think one thing that I was going to make a video about this, I still might, but a lot of people associate arpeggios, single note arpeggios, with very fast, aggressive metal music. And people that don't play that style of music might look at arpeggios and think, oh, sweet picking all this. Like, I don't need to learn this. I don't play anything like that. And what I've found is I know the fretboard really well, but that's just from years of doing it. But I looked at it in a new light. If people don't know the fretboard, that's one of the best possible ways to figure it out. Because if you're doing an ascending arpeggio and you're starting at the root note on like at the D string, the second string on the fifth fret, and you're going all the way up towards like the 15th fret of the higher octave on the B string, and then going back down from it, by doing that and understanding where all of those three notes just keep repeating, you're inherently learning where everything is on the fretboard accidentally, like without even realizing you're doing it. And then making things a little bit easier, and then more like implementation where it's not just one problem. A lot of people, and I've had this with practices, it feels like you're doing robotics. So when you're doing scales and you're doing this, it's like, yeah, my technique is good, but like, what is the point of this? This sounds like a scale. It sounds boring. Is you play something like the sixth. So you start with the D arpeggio, and then you play the sixth of that, and then you go down to the fourth, and then the fifth. All of a sudden, if you just play those chords together, that's one of the most common pop progressions of all time. And now when you're practicing that, you're learning where each part of that is. You know the scale degrees, you know what notes to shoot for to make things interesting. It's you're killing so many birds with one stone. And if I was to start all over again, I don't know that I would start with arpeggios, but I would start with some other smaller techniques that really got me to begin to understand how all these different notes in the context of a song and chord progression work together.
Yeah. You started at the point where I am, and then progress into something that I'm achieving to to get to. So I'm doing the arpeggios to know the notes on the neck a bit better. The second, third, and fourth string is always a bit trickier to know exactly where I am at. So that's why I'm doing it, like precisely why you're saying it. And they're quite common, like the solo of Sultans of Swing has an arpeggio right in the middle of it, and also one of the Carlos Santana, I don't know if it's Coração Espinoso or the other one, has as well the that's an arpeggio as well. So it's not just used for metal, although that's usually when you search on YouTube, guitar arpeggio, and that's the only thing that you see. And speaking of which, because of what you were saying as well, I've used pickup music, and they have that caged bootcamp, and they start by showing like where the chords are, the different chords, and then how do they sit on top of the pentatonic, and actually on top of the major scale, and then how that relates to the pentatonic. So it was a good way for me to visualize, already knowing the notes, what I was actually aiming or targeting, because I think we talked about this last time as well, which was there's a lot to do with listening and playing and listening to ourselves and listening to songs and trying to figure out and playing along to songs. That was always something that I heard. I thought, that's so hard. How can you even play along to songs if you don't know the notes? But our brains have this thing of picking up the sound and telling our hands where to go if you have been practicing scales, because there is some relativity that's happening that I only started realizing a couple of years ago, and I've been playing since I was 14 and I'm now 30. But because I never tried to do these things, so it's a lot of being exposed to stuff and trying new things sometimes that does help.
Yes, and one problem that I ran into when I was younger, I learned from tabs a lot. So I would understand how to get to the note and be like, because like I would hear a certain song and I'd think to myself like, that was different. That really stuck out to me. So I wanted to seek out the tab, and you'd have to first of all pray it was correct, because not all the tabs that were posted online, still to this day, they're not all right. But I would figure that out, but I wouldn't know how to play it myself. All I was able to do is monkey see, monkey do. And the difference between becoming a musician, that's definitely a facet of it, is being able to identify how to recreate that in your own compositions, not just play it because somebody else did. Why did this one note stand out so much? Well, I mean, it's all relative to the song. Can you break down what the progression is? What key is it in? What mode was he in when he did this? And where else can you play that on the neck in case you wanted to add like a different semitone on top of it or an octave? There are so many things that once you have the basic understanding of theory, and really, it starts with knowing where everything is on the fretboard. Because once you do that, oh, it's simple, because it's just patterns. You just have to understand where the patterns start on each string. And that's something I wish I took more seriously when I was starting. Luckily, I grew into it, but yeah.
I think it's hard because it feels slow. It feels like you're not progressing. If you get together with some guys and you want to jam or you want to practice for a gig, right? And you want to do 5-10 songs. If you spend the whole 3 hours doing one song, it feels like you're not getting anywhere. But actually, that might be more productive to spend 3 hours on a song over 10 weeks than try to rush them all every time and not get anywhere. And that's sometimes how I feel with courses. Stuff like they start and it's super slow and it's not getting anywhere, and I feel frustrated. And I've even been told just that, work out what number regarding to the scale are we on when you're playing a certain note, or what mode is it in. Transpose bits of solos from key to key to figure it out. But it just feels everything so slow. And when you don't have much time, you're not 16 or 15 anymore. It's I think that's where a lot of people, myself included, struggle to find the motivation to just focus. Okay, this is what you're going to do, and believe that the benefits are there, even though they're not apparent initially. I don't know how did you also struggle to from moving from one thing to the other, or have you found a way to just be zen about it and push through?
One way I helped learn what to actually focus on when I was practicing, because I actually never had a problem practicing and sitting down to practice. I always enjoyed it. But there's a difference between the quality of practice that you're putting in. You could sit for 4 hours and accomplish nothing. Or you could sit for a half hour and accomplish 5 times as much as you will in that 4 hours. It's all about focusing on what you want to really improve on. And what I found, the way that works for me to do that is, I will go through my normal practice routine of, I'll make a list of things I want to do. I'll sit in Pro Tools and I'll record it with the click track. I will listen back. And as soon as I notice something is a little bit off, like if I'm having trouble, like I mentioned the economy picking, if I notice on the ups, that's always my problem, going up back on the strings on a straight mowing motion without alternate picking, I kind of have a weakness with that. So what I'll do is I'll focus just on that. And I will just continue to do the part that I suck at for 10, 15 minutes and do nothing else. Even if it's just a 6-note pass, that's what I'm working on. And it doesn't bother me. I was doing the same thing last night with a hammer-on exercise. The exercise isn't complicated, but just doing it and really working out your muscles, and also not rushing. As far as, I knew I could play it faster, but that's not the point. When you're practicing, the point is to get the muscle memory and build the strength. And you actually build more strength if you do it slower and more kind of just focused on it. Deliberately, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, so if you just really deliberately okay, my pinky feels weak here. If I do it slow and really put a little bit of effort into it to make sure that my pinky is getting a good workout, if I do this for a week or 2 weeks, I know I'm going to feel a lot better about it going forward.
Yeah, that's another thing that I've been told was practice the songs faster but also slower. Sometimes getting everything all the little dynamics and everything worked out slowly can also be tricky because you're used to playing at a certain tempo. It's like trying to explain to someone else what's going on or how you're playing it. But that's a good mindset to have of work on it, and it's just like you go in a black box, you come out 2 weeks later, and this problem or what you're targeting will have been better.
Yes, but the other problem is you have to come back to it. That is the hardest part, and that's where the real discipline comes in, because you can put in those woodshed hours where you do it for a month even. If you do not keep practicing it, you're going to lose it. Yeah, so it's especially, we're getting older. So we it's not like when we were kids. When we were kids, like you could pick something up, and as long as you were like actively doing something similar, it stuck with you for the most part. Nowadays, if you learn something like a brand new technique, you know, once you hit 30, man, it really does. It changes how easy it is to not only adapt to something, but to keep that new skill that you have. So I can't stress how important it is to just always revisit things, and especially if they're things that you feel that are not your strongest suits in your playing.
Even just, well, there's the muscle aspect of it, the dexterity, but also the mentally visioning things. Like yesterday when I was doing that, it wasn't so much the muscle memory that I was struggling with, or it wasn't the physical ability to reach the notes or to play the notes. It was remembering where to put the fingers. Even though I had done it like 20, 30 times, I kept screwing up because it's 5 chords, the exercise. So I was doing it, and every time, but again, recording it, like you're saying, really does help. And it gives a little more a precision boost sort of things, like if in a game, if you got like a little boost to try to really get it well, because then you can listen back to it and like, oh, I did that, and it records it, and it went well. And I was using the drum loops, where in drums, one was like a hip-hop beat, and the other one was like an electronic beat, because since it was, I think I was playing in C major, but it is, you know, sometimes arpeggios can, or at least that sort of arpeggios with the backing track that I was using was more like metal. So it's like, oh, electric, like house music sounded kind of cool, which is just, you know, something different, because you can always listen to blues and rock and indie and guitar focused music sometimes, and without the rest of the band. It is sometimes a bit more, oh, words, for fuck's sake.
It's true though. I like that. I like playing along with music that I don't play. I have so much fun with that, because it's like it's a new way to make practicing fun. I play last night. I swear to God, I played about 45 minutes of Japanese, like I don't know the exact genre for it, but it was like neoclassical metal, kind of inspired in Visual Kai, and I had so much fun doing it. I don't write songs like that. I don't do things like that, but I found a few little riffs in it, and I was just like, this sounds so cool. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to transcribe it correctly. I don't care how long it takes to transcribe it correctly. I don't care how long it takes me. And I'm just going to keep playing it and keep playing it and keep playing it. And it just adds another skill to your level. And then I thought to myself after, I was just like, well, how can I implement some of this into my own playing? And that's where the fun really begins. You know what I mean? I think the hardest technique for me that I'm scared of, because I don't want to do it. I see the value in it, but I just don't want to do it. And that's traditional country chicken picking. I can't do it, man.
The pick with one hand and the fingers.
Yes, but there's like a fingernail trick too, like to really get like that really aggressive, like that sharp attack and the bite to it. Just plucking in a normal sense, like lightly, if you're finger picking, it's not going to do it. So you have to like really either pull up and pull with the string to get that attack, so the string is going to bounce off the fretboard a little bit, or use your nails to kind of add that little bit of the harder surface to it that will also result in the string sounding differently. And these are little details between getting something to sound a certain way and having it sound like, okay, I know what he's trying to get it to sound like. You know, it's taking it down and breaking it down and figuring it all out. That's why I appreciate so many amazing players like Greg Koch. Their technique is just, it's unbelievable.
something that's not completely related to that, but it is. Yesterday, I went to a music festival, a free music festival that you're doing here this weekend. Is a end of summer sort of bank holiday around here in the UK, and they have loads of music around in parks and stuff. And there was this band playing, and in a park, in a tent, in a stage that was basically at the ground level, you could hear it, but it was like all the technique in the world wouldn't have saved anyone performing there with bad sound system. So sometimes is it really worth to try to get all those details other than just for our own enjoyments? Is there a point?
Yes, there is, because you're not always going to be playing at a place with a shit sound system.
There's hope one day.
Even if you never do, even if you're always playing at a place where the sound system is bad, at the end of the day, when you are the one playing it and you finish up and you know you did it right, it doesn't matter, because you have a sense of accomplishment. You can have a sense of pride knowing that you put the time in, you covered your bases, it was out of your control. You cannot control certain acoustic environments or certain sound systems. You just can't do that. I've gigged long enough to know, like, sometimes you're going to get really lucky. Places that look terrible while on the outside or even on the inside look like horrible dive bars, they will have some of the best sound systems, and you will be like, I want to play here every day. I want to play here every single day. This is perfect. And in other places might look very high end. Everything's brand new. It sounds god awful. It's those things you can't control. But what you can control is your own performance, taking pride in yourself as a musician to say, you know what, I could screw up here. I could take the easy way out and make things a little bit simpler to play. Nobody's going to know the difference, because they're not. You're right. But you'll know the difference. And this is a life journey. This isn't one thing that we do for a year or two and we drop it. It's not like the newest edition of a FIFA video game where next year we have a brand new one coming out. You got to relearn it. You can just, I don't know. I feel like it's worth it, the value proposition wise, to just always try and do your best.